Hello, everyone. Welcome to the AVIXA webinar today. We're just going to give everybody a couple minutes to join in, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So thank you for joining today. Hello, everyone. My name is Megan Hershey. I'm the Senior Sales Manager at AVIXA, and welcome to Bringing Digital Experiences to Physical Spaces, presented by Dr. Farhan Mohideen, Product Strategy and IoT Spokesperson with Intel, Ira Prifty, Chief Strategy Officer with Acrelec, Peter McManus, Global Account Manager with Acrelec, and Jeffrey Laroon, Product Manager with Acrelec. Before I hand the presentation over to our team, there are a few housekeeping items. For those viewing live today, webinars qualify for 1 CTS, CTSD, and CTSI RU credit. Please allow 5 to 7 business days to view on your transcripts. For any issues, please email webinars@avixa.org. The webinar will be approximately 45 to 60 minutes, and all attendees will be placed on mute. If you have any questions during the presentation, please enter them into the Q&A window only so today's moderator can address them at the end of the webinar. To access the Q&A window, simply move your cursor at the bottom of your live stream video box to locate the Q&A icon and type away. You will have access to the recorded webinar at avixa.org/webinars in about 5 business days. Now to Farhan and team, take it away.
Thanks a lot, Megan. Hello, everybody, and I'm really happy to present this webinar with our partners Acrelec, and I'm thrilled to say we've got 3 representatives from Acrelec in this webinar who will give us a perspective of how they are taking digital experiences into physical spaces. What I'd like to do first and foremost is take you through a couple of slides around what we are seeing from an Intel perspective, and then have the majority of the discussion around what Acrelec is doing. So in terms of the agenda, first and foremost, I'd like to talk to you about a few examples of where digital is being adopted in physical environments. But most importantly, secondly, I would like to talk to you about the opportunity. I mean, this is a significant investment that is going into digital spaces or into physical spaces with digital experiences being infused. And thirdly, I'd like to speak to you about some of our partnership programs, the technology that we provide to actually make real some of the products and then bring it to market. And finally, we would be talking majority of this time with the Acrelec team around how they've been implementing, how they've been changing their strategies, and what products they brought into the market during the pandemic, for the pandemic, and even after. So with that, let's talk about digital in physical spaces. Now, some of the most common places that we visit are basically infused with digital technologies, especially when COVID hit us. I mean, we wanted to make pretty much every space very much COVID secure, right? And because of that, we had things like, QR codes being introduced so that you can do contactless payments. Or you were also doing things like management of how many people could actually come through a store, or how many people could be in a certain environment. So there was all of these people counting systems that were coming through. So these were all recent examples of how digital was being introduced into these physical spaces. Now, I have some very detailed examples around retail and restaurants, but because I represent the business unit called RBHE, Retail Banking, Hospitality and Education, I want to also touch a little bit on education and banking before I go into those detailed examples. So in the case of education, we've pretty much seen quite a lot of interactive whiteboards being adopted by classrooms. But beyond that, I mean, even before COVID, we did see there was a transformation taking place in classrooms as well. For instance, attendance management, attendance registry, they were all being automated. Actually, this was something that was initiated in China. But more importantly, where there were issues with or a lack of resources in terms of good teachers in rural areas, there were new solutions that were being adopted so that teachers in the city could transmit their lectures also to those rural areas at the same time, so that those kids who are in those rural areas could benefit with the information and could directly ask questions. And this was all enabled by technology being infused. In banking, one of the significant changes that's taking place right now is that pretty much all of the retail banking activities are taking place on your mobile phone. I mean, you don't need to actually step into a bank anymore. You could pretty much open an account phone. But now, one thing that the banks are doing, at least the retail banks, they're making the branch more relevant. They're bringing more digitization into it by creating by adding things like kiosks and digital signage. By doing that, they give the opportunity for the customer to come in, not only for any predetermined, appointments, but to do things that they could not do uh, back at home. So for instance, in Germany, if you are to get a SIM card, the first thing that you need to do is you need to identify yourself. So you need to go to certain kiosks that actually provide you with that functionality where you can upload your passport and take a picture of yourself and validate that you are who you are. And these kind of functionalities are being put in banking kiosks right now. These are very different to ATMs, but still, there is a reason now for a customer to go back to a retail bank. So let's get down to some of the more detailed use cases I have here in retail. Now, I have a good 5 examples here, and you might be very familiar with a normal grocery run. Now we have self-checkout. It's been growing in popularity even during COVID. And you might wonder, what sort of digitization do we have here? Or how is it being infused? As a matter of fact, these self-checkout stations are one of the areas where a lot of theft takes place. And because of that, retailers are putting in a lot of technology to ensure that they can minimize that theft. So the technology that's been put in is things like identifying, the user behavior. That's number one. Number two, it would be more along the lines of, have the barcode that has been scanned and the product that's been put in, are they the same? Validating that using computer vision. So there's a lot of, and even, measuring the weight of the product. By tallying everything together, you know that the right product was actually put in the basket. Then if you look at inventory control, this is like over a $600 billion problem globally on an annual basis for every retailer. Across all retailers. So, I mean, to combat this, there are solutions around, having computer vision across all of the shelves so that when it is in a non-compliant state with regards to the planogram, or when the stocks are out, so that you can replenish the stocks extremely quickly so that you don't lose out on a sale. And at the same time, if you have to do anything with inventory control in the store, you also need to manage what's in the warehouse, because if those two areas are not connected, the biggest issue you're going to see is that there is no way that the store personnel will be able to identify what is available in the warehouse to bring it forward. So there's a lot of robotics that's been added to, automate that process, connect that cycle, and bring the stock out when relevant. And then there are these two new uh, types of engagements that we're seeing in retail stores. One is where intelligent shopping carts are being introduced, and these shopping carts, once you upload your shopping list, would guide you through the fastest way to get through the items. That's one advantage. But more advantages is that whenever you drop any items into the shopping cart, it's already identifying the product and putting a tally on the visual screen that you get on the shopping cart. So this way you know exactly what your spend is. And then for the more adventurous people who are in a hurry, who wants to just pick something on their way home, or just one or two items, there are these autonomous stores that are getting coming in very handy right now. And this provides a fully digitized experience from the time you actually enter the store all the way until you exit. It picks out which products were actually picked up versus put back, and automatically builds you through that journey. So these are all experiences that have been enabled through digitization of a number of processes and bringing in new technologies. Moving on, let's now take a look at what's happening in quick service restaurants. Now, quick service restaurants, there's been a huge demand during COVID times for people to get their fix on burgers, right? But even before COVID, one of the biggest innovations that took place in quick service restaurants was the kiosk. I mean, uh, I don't know about you, but I really love using the kiosk because it allows me to choose the items without having to repeat myself a number of times to the cashier. That's number one. And nobody would judge if I upsize my meal. So I really like that interaction. I really like that experience. But more importantly, the kiosk gives you not only the options, but it also gives you a different way in which you can interact. Like if you've got loyalty, you can start collecting that loyalty or even using that loyalty at the point of interaction itself. So I really like the way in which kiosks were introduced. And some of the statistics that we've heard is that the basket size when interacting with a kiosk went up by 30%. So it has been a good introduction to quick service restaurants. But ever since, we've also seen there's been more automation coming in the kitchen. For instance, because of COVID, you needed to make sure that the staff were appropriately wearing their gear. They had to, make sure that if there are any anomalies that are taking place when, the processing of the food is being done, that those could be picked out so that, you give fresh food prepared in the right way, in the right consistency to the customers. And then, of course, in the kitchen also, you can see how much of wastage is taking place. And the wastage is measurable. And then you can actually think about, if you're wasting this amount of food, is there another way in which you can utilize it? Or do we have to optimize our operations, our processes to reduce that wastage? So the kitchen automation, I think, is significantly added into pretty much all of the restaurants, because that is going to really make a difference on the bottom line as well. Then digital menu boards, both indoors and outdoors, they've been key, right? I mean, they are the best way to showcase, what's available based on the day part. So in the morning, afternoon, evening, if you don't have, relevant stock, you can quickly, very dynamically take them off the menu, so that, when the customer comes in, he or she knows exactly what's available, and it also gives you the opportunities to upsell and so on and so forth. So that's been there for quite a while, and it's been heavily used in drive-through as well. When you drive through, the first thing you see is these outdoor menu boards. You make up your mind around what you're going to buy based on what is there. And drive-through has been like, for quick service restaurants, it's almost been like 70% of QSR restaurants business. But with COVID, of course, delivery also, or third-party delivery also started to increase. But the drive-through, as we have seen during COVID, um, when the restaurants started to open, there was it was not really possible for those restaurants to keep up with the amount of traffic that was coming through. So there is a huge amount of transformation that is taking place right now, uh, just to make sure that we can actually speed up those orders so that nobody is sitting there for over 3 to 4 minutes. It's quite important for that experience. So I think this is one of the areas that's going to be changing very rapidly, very quickly, with a lot of innovation going in. And delivery, you might think these delivery apps have nothing to do with physical spaces, but although you order it online, by the time that order gets to the restaurant, everything that happens is in a physical space. And the whole demand management of the delivery drivers, the food being prepared on time, and also giving relevant information back to the customer who's ordered, it's all happening through digital processes. So I think what's important in both of those examples is that it's really about uh, all of these visual aspects that have helped these experiences uh, really make those journeys much more easier, much more comfortable to the customers. But um, one thing has been for certain. I mean, if you go back to 2020, which is not too long ago, we all felt that, hey, when the physical spaces are open, we want to rush back. But at the same time, now people are going to plan their visits more thoughtfully, and they're going to have their expectations when they plan their visits and come to a physical environment in a much higher way. So they're going to expect much more than ever before. So what we see is this as a really good opportunity to disrupt some of the existing processes which have been automated, as well as some of the new customer journeys that are happening. Now, for instance, you could say that, hey, maybe we simply digitize existing processes and we should be good. But that's not how it works, right? I mean, it's digitization is one part of it, but at the same time, you must look at the long-term implications, long-term journeys that you can create, which could be a differentiation for your customers, differentiation for your retail environment or your restaurant or whichever physical environment. So you need to look at it more from a short-term perspective, which is more for digitization, and from a long-term digital transformation process as well. And at the same time, because we are looking at the pandemic, and hopefully with the vaccines now in place, we also need to think about the recovery. These have to be put together, and technology needs to be brought together in order to do things in a better way, and at the same time to do better things. And this is where the digitization and the digital transformation comes together. And to do that, we got the technology right now. I mean, AI, IoT makes everything connected, gives you new insights. Edge computing, gives you those insights in immediacy so that you can act upon the data that's available to you right away. So I think one thing is very clear, that moving forward, I mean, even during or even before COVID, right? We knew that there was a lot of digitization that was taking place, but there is a significant opportunity here for all of us. Now, by 2022, it is said through some of the studies that were done by this external research that 65% of the global GDP will be digitized. Now, this is no small amount. I mean, if you want to put that in context, this is like 7 trillion in terms of technology spend. This is a huge opportunity that we can go after. And by 2030, because of the increase in the in the in the population as well as the medium earners, right? You would see an incremental spend of up to 30 trillion. This would be from 34 right now, moving up to 64 trillion. And the spend or the contribution that AI provides for this is almost 16 trillion. So this is no small opportunity. This is quite a large opportunity that we should take advantage of and start building those processes or those customer journeys right from the get-go right now. So where do we really start? Um, I think if we take an example, right, the very first thing that you would need to do is identify what are these high impact customer journeys. And it's from there that you need to figure out, exactly how we could start to create those journeys which are more enjoyable to the customer. So let me take an example like buy online, pick up in store, right? This has been around for quite some time. What we used to do is, order something online, go into the store, and the retailer normally would hope that, when you go into the store, it will attract you to buy other things, and therefore, the amount you spend is higher than, just only picking up the item that you order. But at the same time, because of the pandemic, we saw things like curbside and curbside pickups also come into play. And that journey is now categorized under buy online, pick up in store. And if you look at currently how it's been done in a very manual fashion. And there is, plenty of infrastructure investment that is being prioritized by retailers to do this. So, to give them the right kind of cues. It's not just about, bringing online and the store and integrating them together. It's not about omni-channel. It's about omni-channel, but at the same time, integrating supply chain as well. Because if something was to go wrong during your journey where you've come to pick up your items, where it clearly shows here is, a person coming to pick up their groceries, go to, parking bay A, digitally, everything is very clearly shown. But if there is a problem, there has to be a way for us to have customer engagement as well. So it has to be end to end. And in order to do this end to end, it's about integrating different systems. We are talking 20 plus systems in a retail store to do online, offline, and bring in supply chain and customer services. So one thing that is clear through all of these examples is that visual devices play a huge role in giving that context, in giving the idea of, how the journey goes for the customer. And I think with AVIXA partners on the call today, I think you already have a foothold, or you're already working with retailers in some fashion or form with your digital signage and so on and so forth. And there is a bigger opportunity that you should go after. So in terms of Intel's offering, all of these technology is needed, to bring in those experiences. So we've got the right kind of hardware from, the Xeon servers all the way to the Atom processors, pretty much IOTG led CPUs, which have a 15-year life cycle, and a host of other hardware and software that will help you accelerate, provide AI capabilities to your applications. We have a number of reference designs which you can utilize, as well as some programs or projects that we've introduced, which are to do with bringing up all of the features in the hardware through a software stack called the One API project. More of that, I mean, there's a lot we can talk about, but more of that later. So with that, I'd like to bring Ira into the call, and maybe Ira, you could maybe switch on your camera. And Ira, from your point of view, Acrelec's been in the forefront of everything that you do with restaurants. What's your thought process right now in terms of both the short-term and long-term strategy, and where do you think you're trying to take Acrelec?
Thank you, Farhan. So yes, a very brief introduction about Acrelec. Acrelec is indeed a global technology company focused on reinventing the customer experience for restaurant and retail brands. 17 years ago, we revolutionized the QSR industry by introducing the kiosks. We provide end-to-end hardware and software solutions to the majority of the global QSR and retail brands. We have 4 key product lines: kiosks that we you mentioned so many times, drive-through solutions, click and collect, and self-checkout solutions. Our ambition is to partner with our customers and fundamentally transform how people dine, shop, and live. So indeed, during the pandemic period, we observed a drastic move on contactless interactions, and more specifically, a stronger shift in delivery, drive-through, and click and collect channels. These are exactly the areas where we will continue to innovate, leveraging on computer vision technologies, voice and audio, Bluetooth, and data mining technologies.
Thank you, Ira. I was also thinking, in terms of some of the investments that you're doing, right? I mean, even though the pandemic hit, that did not mean that everything stopped, right? You've been deploying your solutions pretty much as before.
The contrary. So we are quite fortunate to be on the heart of the digital transformation of our customers, both in the QSR and in the retail space. And so we've accelerated the investment on the, as I said, like the click and collect and the pickup solutions, some contact-like technology on the kiosk that we'll discuss further later on. So no, absolutely, we've continued to invest. As I said, our 4 R&D development investment areas are computer vision, video, audio, voice, Bluetooth interactions for seamless interactions with the customers, and data mining, artificial intelligence use cases.
Brilliant, brilliant. And let me also bring in Peter into the discussion. Peter, from your point of view, I think digital transformation is something that is very close to your heart. So why don't you explain what you've been driving?
Yes, so I think you set the conversation up very nicely with your prelude earlier on, Farhan. I think there's a consensus with industry analysts, academics, business leaders that the whole process of digitalization has been expedited by some 5 to 10 years because of the impact of COVID, and has accelerated some customer behavior changes and journey types that were already underway. But one thing that we maybe haven't touched upon yet is actually how customer behaviors have been evolving. Perceptions of human contact, whether it be at the till, cash register, whether it be a kiosk, whether it be the delivery driver, perceptions of touching devices. That's what this contactless stuff is about. And that actually can run countercurrent to some of the desires that a business operator may have. Because if you think about a lot of operators today, they may have big fixed assets within their store. They have bricks and mortar, they have real estate, and then they have dependencies on the above to drive sales and hire checks. So, one of the challenges with COVID, particularly for a global company and global restaurateurs, is that it's been a real patchwork quilt. You have parts of the world, in fact, cities where you have full dining areas closed, partial dining areas closed, legislation changing every day. So it's very, very difficult to kind of keep up with this. So what we can certainly see is that there has been a real shift from in the store, which is a real topic that we have for conversation today, to outside the store. Okay, that is shift to mobile, shift to drive-through, and then all these variations on this buy online, pick up in store. So if you think about pickup, and you rightly touched upon the fact that ultimately you're picking up at the store, there's a physical store there. You are going to pick up in your car. Are you going to do it in the drive-through? Are you going to pull into a parking bay? Have you paid already through a mobile app? Is that a branded mobile app, or is that an app through an aggregator? And is that a delivery aggregator that you're paying 30% commission to that's retaining the majority of the data? So there's all of these challenges for operators. I have these fixed costs, and now there's this whole world outside of my fixed costs, and I'm behind. I haven't embraced this. So that's definitely been a big challenge. But at the same time, this all comes back to the store, right? And so you have assets already in the store. Kiosks, for example. And you rightly say, many of the big brands we work with, they drive far higher average tickets through using kiosks. So there's been a lot of focus in recent years around changing customer behavior. So they order at kiosks and not at the tills. You can do that. Then it's beneficial for your operations, for your kitchen production, and it's efficient and it's fun and engaging, and you make more money. But now your dining areas are closed, or now you can't operate kiosks the same way. So I think that is kind of a bit of a summary of the challenges. But I also think that the store is being somewhat forgotten in all of this. If you look at major restaurant brands, the way they're envisioning their new store designs, there's a lot of focus around drive-through and pickup. But what about the city stores that have no real estate, that can't operate a drive-through, that have 10 kiosks already? So I think maybe that's where we could kind of take the conversation next, is what have operators been doing within those stores in COVID?
I mean, that's that's a very good point, right? I mean, what do you do in city centers where you don't have the luxury of actually driving through? And with that, you've nicely teed it up for Jeffrey. Jeffrey, do you want to come online and perhaps talk about, some of the solutions that you've been able to bring to market?
Yes, thank you, Farhan. So, like Peter just said before, Acrelec has innovated in a lot of new technologies, and one of those technologies is called touchless. So basically, the Acrelec touchless is a plugin technology that enables the end users of our kiosks to complete a full order at the same speed without the need to touch the screen. So the first aim was, of course, to keep the user safe because of the pandemic. So technically, we use an Intel RealSense camera that Farhan mentioned just before. The camera is placed on top of the screen of our kiosks, and we capture the data and we interpret the position of the finger in front of the screen. So, and this way we are able to interact with the kiosk without the need to touch the screen. We created the touchless solution in 2020 when the pandemic started to spread. And our first aim was, of course, to provide an answer to the growing need of safety around the use of public touchscreen. And then our goal for integration is to be totally transparent for our client, is to have a plug and play solution, to be retrofitable and to be adaptable on all kiosks. And so you don't need to buy a whole new kiosk to have this new technology. Like Peter said, a lot of stores owner already have 10 kiosks. And so our touchless solution is made to be retrofitable on the kiosks that are already there. And with this technology, we've already made some a lot of improvement and some on-field testing. Since we were able to demonstrate the proof of concept of our solution with 2 major clients in the quick service industry, over the world. We have provided a wow factor and a fun interaction with our innovative technology, and we've got very good user feedback. We've made some on-site surveys showing that around 90% of the users were ready to use the touchless as a new way of integrating with the kiosks. So that tells a lot about the innovation that we can bring to the market on the way to interact, at least with the kiosks. Also, we were able to integrate to the environment of our client, in our case, the quick service industry, without any change to the customer journey or the ordering interface. So the customer journey is still the same, the ordering interface is still the same. We had no impact on the throughput of the store. So it means that we just, our technology is very transparent. We just plug it on the kiosk, and then the customers are protected, are safe, and are able to use the kiosk the same way as before. And it's a huge impact on the innovative technology that you can bring to a store with low cost and low integration. And also, users were able to order, of course, at the same speed without touching the screen of the kiosk. So it means that they were able to complete a full contactless journey from ordering to the payment, because now we have a lot of contactless payment also. So the whole customer journey is now contactless and is fully digitalized in that way. And on those tests that we did in store, we gathered a lot of learning to adapt our solution to our clients' demanding and fast-paced environment in the quick service industry. And we are very happy to continue working with the major actor of the QSR industry to roll out our solution now.
Thanks, Jeffrey. If I could ask you, Jeffrey, I mean, you said that you don't have to go and replace your existing kiosks. You're simply retrofitting these kiosks with this technology, right? How quick is it to do? And I know you mentioned that customers are happy to use the kiosk in that fashion, but what has been the learning curve as well for the customer in this case? To interact without touching. Yeah.
Yes. To answer your first question on retrofitting the kiosks, it's very simple, because all we have to do is to provide you with a retrofitting kit to place the camera on top of the kiosk. We plug the camera, of course, on the computer of the kiosk, and then we install our proprietary software. All we have to do then is a quick calibration procedure, and after that, the users are already able to use the solution. So all in all, the installation might last 15 minutes per kiosk. So it's very fast. And on your second question about the learning curve of the usage of the technology, we've actually tried to minimize the learning curve in order to maximize the throughput of the store and to minimize the impact of the business. Actually, we saw that it was very convenient for the user to use the touchless, because it's the same gesture as you would in a touch screen. All you have to do is to point your finger at the screen, and it selects for you before you touch the screen. So it selects for you like 3 centimeters away from the screen. So in that way, the learning curve is there are really no learning curve. After 1 or 2 clicks, you already know how the system behaves and how you adapt to the system or how the system adapts to you in order to do the full touchless ordering.
Nice. And I also noticed that you have a pin entry device at the bottom. That has not changed, and because you've introduced contactless payments, it again makes it COVID safe. Is the idea moving forward to bring in different other types of payment mechanisms as well, like QR codes? They started to become very popular in certain industries. Do you plan to do that as well?
Yes, well, we do look at every innovation and possibilities we have to make a better customer journey and a more contactless customer journey. Like you said, we've introduced the contactless payment, and we know that in some markets, like you said, for example, in Asia, there's a lot of QR code to pay with the mobile phone, a lot of mobile phone paying. And we are indeed looking at those options to even better the contactless journey.
So if we can also bring in Peter and Ira back, I'd just like to talk to you about, the kiosk is like in the center of everything over here. Now, with those other customer journeys that are taking place, right, which your drive-through was one, but there are also these aspects around, where delivery drivers have to go and pick up stuff, or, you might have to pick it up from a locker and stuff like that, which is external, right, outside the store. What kind of role is the kiosk playing in those cases? I mean, do you envisage it being just a locker, or are you thinking, there is more that you can bring to that customer journey through a kiosk?
So there are a few new use cases emerging actually outside the store with kiosks. So we've actually, with a major quick service chain, installed a kind of like a walkthrough in Spain, in the Spanish market. And so the store actually had very restricted real estate, was unable to have a drive-through. And so what we did was install a kiosk in a secure environment. There was an external window for the customer to collect their food, was able to secure the kiosk at nighttime. And what we actually saw was that the ticket average was higher in the kiosk on the outside of the store than it was in the actual dining area itself. Transactions were a bit lower, but they were making more money, a bit more like a drive-through. So kiosks can be, there are new journey types. And then when it comes to delivery, in a way, the delivery, payment, and the store are all coming together. So the delivery driver's going to have to traipse through the store. Where are they going to, check in? The customer, maybe they have paid on their phone and they've come to the kiosk and then they've presented the QR code and then they've paid that way and then want to socially distance. So then they take a table service tent, they sit down in the corner, no interaction with anyone, and the food magically comes to them. So, so when it comes to kind of kiosks, what we're seeing is they're being somewhat reimagined for all these drive-through and curbside settings, but that existing fixed asset that's in the store that's already generating so much extra income is actually helping with the collections from those online payments. And then it's also helping with social distancing for customers that just don't want to, deal with the staff like they may be used to. I don't know, Ira, if you've got anything to add to that.
I would add on the something on the pickup. So one of the use cases that we had with retailers, with retail customers of kiosks was what we used to call like check-in. On the curbside pickup, kiosks used to be used as a check-in point in order to declare, the arrival time and trigger the operations, the staff, and manually bring them the order. So this pickup, this is kind of an old generation customer journey and technology. So we are innovating and reinventing the pickup zone, as you mentioned as well. So with a bigger focus on frictionless technologies through Bluetooth, geolocalizations, mobility, and less hardware footprint as it used to be like 15 years ago.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're using a lot of AI to do these, make these journeys, possible. I just noticed there is a question from Ivan, and I'll open it up to any one of you. Can the touchless application be implemented on any screen beside a kiosk? I think, Jeffrey, you might be best to answer this.
Yeah, so yes, indeed. So we have different type of customers all around the world, and they all have their own kiosks. We have some 22-inch kiosks. We also have 32-inch kiosks, and we also have what we call self-checkouts in the retail environment. And of course, yes, the touchless is available on all of those platforms. And like I mentioned before, that was one of our first aim when we created touchless, is to be able to retrofit all of the existing screen where there's a PC, a computer, and a screen. You can have touchless.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeffrey.
Farhan, you
Yeah.
mentioned AI, and I don't know if we have time just to briefly touch upon that at all in the
Please
conversation.
do. Yeah, go ahead.
So obviously, with the kiosks within the store, of course, we've got great relationship with Intel there because we're using Intel processors. We've got the Intel cameras that we're using very effectively, as we've discussed today. And one of the advantages of having those assets there is you've got that interaction with the customer in a way that you wouldn't have at the traditional counter. So knowing your customer is very important, right? And so there are various kind of characteristics that you can take into consideration when presenting to them ordering opportunities. It could be the location, can be the weather, can be temperature. So there's other factors. So what Acrelec does is we actually have algorithms which we run in a secure hosted environment, which allow us to actually present smart product recommendations to the customer. And what we see is that there's a very, very high take-up of those recommendations. An average check can be increased from anything from 1.5% to 3%, just from knowing a customer, just from knowing what they want. But what we find from marketers is they're often guessing. They don't have the data, and they just don't know. So by having a kind of an objective way of determining what you could present a customer, then don't offer them an ice cream like on a cold day. Don't offer them a cup of coffee, when it's boiling hot outside. So now this actually extends beyond the kiosk into other areas of the omnichannel. So when it comes to the drive-through, when you're presented at the menu boards with your various options and they're confirming them, would you like a cookie? Well, there's actually more sophisticated and relevant ways you can personalize upselling to customers. And that applies also at the POS. It applies also on your mobile phone too. So Acrelec absolutely is using AI to do smart product recommendations, both with the Intel Acrelec kiosk opportunity and then across the other areas of this increasing offline, online, virtual, non-physical, quasi-physical store environment.
And Peter, it's not AI just been applied only from a visual point of view. I think you're doing a lot when it comes to even in drive-through for voice, right? I think you're trying to automate all of that as well. You're building in new algorithms to automatically identify who said what and process that order instead of having a physical person actually take the order, so that you can increase the processing of those orders. So voice seems to be another angle. So both visual and voice are things that you're innovating on, right?
Very much, yes, very much indeed.
Okay. Wow, there is quite a long question here. Let's see what it is. I understand this might be a bit off topic. I think we can all read it, right? So I'll not. But thought that there might be a connection to the whole digitization strategy, customer journey, touchless technology. Can you provide some insight into small GPS vehicles that routinely drive our neighborhoods, sometimes 2 to 3 times per day? What information are they gathering and what is the end goal? Are they planning routes for driverless delivery for retailers, grocery stores, etc.? Okay. I don't know if you want to answer this. It doesn't, it is a bit off topic, but anybody wants to hazard a guess?
Yeah, I can't see that question. So could you repeat that, please, just quickly?
Yeah, sure. He says,
yes, I can see now.
Oh, you can see it? Okay, good. It's quite a long one.
GPS vehicles routing around. Yeah, it's a very kind of catch-all question. All I would say is in the Acrelec world, in the quick service industry, we do work in retail as well. But in the quick service industry, what's happened is that all the major chains have had a major dependency emerge, particularly accelerated through COVID, on these third-party aggregator websites. We know who they are: Deliveroo, Just Eat, etc., etc. And so what they do is they now own the pipes. They own the delivery channels, they own the ordering mechanism into the stores, and they're taking up to 30%. So comparative same-store sales, even for major quick service operators, have not necessarily suffered in the crisis, but their profit margins certainly have. So what a lot more of the quick service operators are doing is looking to have their own branded mobile app to be able to own the customer experience and get the data for that, and then have far better margins as a result. So it's a very relevant question, maybe not necessarily for us. The reality is there's a role for aggregators, there's a role for your own app, there's a role for the store, and there's a role for the drive-through and the other pickup scenarios we discussed.
I think it's the aggregators most often who are trying to figure out where are most of these online orders coming from, right? So that's brought about, things like ghost kitchens and stuff like that, where, it could be that there is a population, but it is not, dense with restaurants and stuff like that in that area. So, a ghost kitchen in those areas could help. So these GPS vehicles could be doing one of two things, right? It could be figuring out, are there more, residential areas there where we can actually supply to. So they're trying to figure out what the demographics is, but, is it an opportunity for you to go create a restaurant or even have a dark kitchen, right? The other thing, it could simply mean, they're still mapping all these roads for autonomous vehicles. You never know, right? Very soon you could get your delivery on a drone. I don't know. Things are moving so fast. Okay, I just have a couple of more slides and then we'll come back to questions very, very quickly. I just have two other slides before we open it up for further questions. It's just that, from an Intel perspective, you've seen how we work with Acrelec and a host of other partners, to bring solutions to market. For us, it's all about, we are really serious about helping our partners bring, innovative solutions to market. So the first thing is, to give you the right kind of, ingredients, the right kind of technologies to help you build that product. And then we help you deploy that product through our ecosystem. Our ecosystem consists of a wide range of end customers, aggregators to solution providers, and so on and so forth, integrators, and so on and so forth. So we can connect you up with those partners to actually go deploy those solutions with the kind of extensive relationships that we have. And then finally, once you've deployed it, we can take that as a reference and then help you scale that solution across the globe. So the partnerships are important for Intel for you to bring those solutions and then to scale that all away. So for that, we've created many IoT programs, and these programs could be simply that you're just using some hardware aspect of Intel, right? Maybe it's just a core CPU, or it could be full-blown solutions that are market ready to be deployed at an end customer, or it's a RFP ready kit solution where it's ready enough for a system integrator to add further customization and push it out. Or we also have a new category of partners that we are looking at, who are video specialists, visual display specialists, what we call ISVs, independent software vendors, and industrial solution builders. We are creating these categories because we know they bring a lot of value to the end-to-end solution. So we are creating these wide set of programs so we can work with all of the partners. So if you feel, there is a place for us to collaborate, please get in touch with us. So in summary, we talked about basically the digital engagements that are already there, but there is an opportunity, a massive opportunity, right, for us to go disrupt these journeys and bring in more convenience. And then we talked about, the broad portfolio that we have in terms of hardware and software, and the solutions that Acrelec has brought to bear. So it's with solutions like this that we would like to take to market, bring it to the right end customers, help them scale, and make them cost effective enough that it could be scaled beyond, a pilot. So we really like you to come partner with us. And if you are interested, please do register at this location. I don't know if you can actually see my screen, webinar.intel.com/talkouts. Register there. One of our representatives will get in touch with you. So let me also ask Ira, Peter, and Jeffrey, do you have a way in which you'd like these partners to get in touch with you? I'm sorry that I didn't put a link there. So is there any specific way you want them to get in touch with you? Maybe via LinkedIn or anything?
Certainly, all of us are good profiles on LinkedIn, so that would be a great way to reach out to us individually. And then I think retrospectively, Geoffroy may publish some other communication opportunities. But yes, good suggestion.
Through our website contact form as well.
Yes, acrelec.com, and it's a very visual and multimedia website. So there's lots of videos there, and you can really experience lots of solutions without reading too much text.
Awesome. Is there any final parting words from the three of you?
So just briefly on the touchless, it's been a great showcase for the partnership with Intel. Obviously, there's some key components of the solution, both core and retrofittable, which have been key to us delivering the solution. And the partnership and raising awareness of that has been really important. We've also seen some exceptional results. We didn't mention that the touchless kiosk experience in our early data analysis is showing actually higher check averages than the traditional touch kiosks. We've actually seen higher transaction counts at those kiosks than traditional touch. And we're seeing amazing survey results from customers. So if you're able to apply this in your industries or any other kind of solutions you have, then we would love to speak to you. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
And thank you from me as well. And Peter, Jeffrey, and thank you for joining me in this webinar. It was very nice talking to you and understanding, how you've taken the solution to market. And I'd like to thank everybody who joined today for taking the time to listen to us. And please do get in touch. And we hope to partner with you and bring other solutions into market. And with that, I'll pass it back to the host.
Thank you, Farhan.
Yes.
Thank you everyone for joining today's webinar, Bringing Digital Experiences to Physical Spaces. This recording will be available on avixa.org/webinars within about 5 business days, and your 1 RU credit will be applied to your transcript within 5 to 7 business days. If you have any trouble, please contact webinars@avixa.org. Thank you again to our speakers, Dr. Farhan Mohideen, Product Strategy and IoT Spokesperson with Intel, Ira Prifty, Chief Strategy Officer with Acrelec, Peter McManus, Global Account Manager with Acrelec, and Jeffrey Laroon, Product Manager with Acrelec, for helping us understand how digital experiences impact our physical spaces. We hope you enjoyed the webinar today, and everyone have a great day. Thank you.